Yeah, so hello everybody. Welcome to the afternoon sessions of PodGamer Connect San Francisco. I'm Charlie, and I am the content coordinator for PodGamer Connect. But today is not about me. I'm going to be talking with Yong-yi from Tencent, and we're going to be talking about how great games are built through community, talent, and sustainable IP strategies. So Yong-yi, welcome. Could you
Thank you.
introduce yourself to the audience and give us a little glimpse of your role at Tencent?
Sure. Thank you for having me. So my name is Yong-yi. I run operations, compliance, and strategy at Tencent's global games business. And what that means is I work with our publishing business globally, as well as many of our studios overseas on developing games, on resource management, on the greenlight process, kind of optimizing their potential and kind of guiding them through, developing new and existing IPs.
Cool. Thank you so much, Yong-yi. So we'll dive into this lovely session now. So my first question, Yong-yi, is what is Tencent's overall strategy when it comes to IP? We are on the IP unlocked track for, So yeah, what is Tencent's overall strategy?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. As you look at Tencent, we work with a ton of very talented developers, and I think our overall strategy around IP is to kind of meet the developers where they are. You look at a company like Riot Games, look at a company like Epic Games. We've invested in these very, very talented and very large companies, and they're building very large, very sustainable IPs. At the same time, I'm also working with a series of much smaller companies and studios that maybe you've heard of and maybe you haven't heard of. They're on their journey to try to figure out whether it's new IP, existing IP, that they want to focus on, yeah.
Yeah, you just teased the sort of next question. So, how does Tencent balance sustaining existing franchises and developing new IP?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we look at the two things very differently. You look at an existing franchise, and these are studios that I work with, for example, Grinding Gear Games or Digital Extreme, who have had games in the market for almost a decade or over a decade. And what they are trying to do, and I work with them to try to figure out how do we amplify that audience? What are the player bases looking for? What do they do today? What do they want to do in the future? How do they want to continue to engage with that brand, with that franchise, with that studio? And we'll talk a little about that, I think, in the upcoming questions. The other side, I think, is a lot more difficult, which is creating new IP. And for that, there's a lot more rigor around how do we evaluate what new IPs to develop. And for that, I think first and foremost, we look at the market, see where the opportunities are. Where are the spaces where maybe players are being underserved today? Or the games that are there are maybe not exactly what people are looking for. We talk to the player base, we talk to the audience, and then we work with our development teams who maybe have a passion in that space. Right? I think passion is also very key for us, is they have to want to make a game in that area. And then when we put those two things together, then we can identify whether it's new IP, existing IP that those developers are going to be working on.
Cool. So, and I think you just pretty much answered my next question about how does Tencent invest in the studios and talent? Is there any more that you can go into with how Tencent does that?
Yeah, it's around passion for sure and talent, and I think two studios that jump out for me specifically are From Software and Larian, and because those two have a very similar story and kind of something we're looking for is they are iterating on their formula, right? From has been working on the Soulsborne, that genre, from Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and now with Elden Ring. And they've perfected it, and it's created such a giant fan base. And for them, it's taken, I don't know, over a decade, maybe even 15, 20 years. Similarly with Larian, I think a lot of people think, oh, Baldur's Gate kind of came out of nowhere. But in reality, they've been working up to Baldur's Gate 3 for a long time with Divinity 1, Divinity 2. And so a lot of what I work with our studios today is kind of that similar thing, is when we acquire them, we look for their long-term passion in a genre, in a type of game, in an audience that they really, really want to connect with. And if they can continue to iterate on that cycle, then I think there's a lot higher chance of success for us and for them.
Thank you. So my next sort of point that I'm going to ask a few questions on, and we're going to be talking about like different markets and not just regions around the world, but also PC, console, mobile. So Tencent has many games that have performed well across multiple international markets. How do you manage to achieve this? What do you consider when you look at all these different markets? Like, I guess, is it a one size fits all, or do you have to adapt your approach?
Well, first of all, it takes a lot of hard work from a lot of people to create this level of success.
I
So,
was going to say, is it entirely on you, Yong-yi?
absolutely not. No, there's a lot of really, really talented people that are working kind of all over the world, right? And your one-stop shop or one-size-fits-all question is certainly relevant. For us, we've established regional teams around the globe that better connects with our audience, whether it's in terms of different platforms, different types of games. I'll give you a couple examples. One is PUBG Mobile, which is something that our publishing teams are working on at the moment. And we connect at a very regional level. Very early on, for example, we realized that we needed a smaller package size because the folks in Southeast Asia or certain parts of the world don't have access to the latest and greatest iPhones, Android phones, etc. Right? So they need something that works for them. So even in game development, that's something that's important. On the other side, in terms of publishing and activities, like I just remember working with the Middle Eastern team, and they gave us a day-by-day breakdown of Ramadan and how we should think about that holiday and how we can better connect with our audience by marketing or not marketing on certain beats during that week so that we can better connect with those people. And so it's that level of expertise and knowledge that really enables us to connect better with that audience. So I think the other thing you mentioned platform, right? And this is another one, and that one probably goes more towards the developers, which is what is the platform they're passionate about developing on and what makes the most sense. We look at a game, and we look at a lot of different things: platform, monetization, genre. Put all those things together, and then you're going to have the recipe and formula for any given game.
So how does Tencent tailor games for the different platforms specifically? Like how do you view PC, console, and mobile? I guess I guess you can explore a little bit more about the what works for the specific genres, but yeah, like how does Tencent view those platforms?
I think it's where's the best place to engage with a certain type of game for a certain type of audience. Sometimes it's form factor. Sometimes it's your play patterns. It's something you want to play throughout the day because you can engage with it for 5 minutes at a time. Or is it like a long thing that you need a large cinematic experience and you're sitting in your living room and it's more of a kind of a console-based thing? Or maybe for your PC, it's something that requires higher end graphics that is best played kind of in that environment. So it's a little bit of like it depends based on the needs of the game, the needs of the genre, and the expertise of the development community.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So, we're also talking a little bit about the collaborative innovation and how Tencent supports that. How does Tencent support collaborative innovation throughout the game development process?
Yeah, and I go back to Grinding Gear and Digital Extreme, who have been working with, in terms of collaborative innovation, they've been collaborating with their community for the better part of a decade, right? And there's no way that your game can succeed without knowing what your audience really, really wants from your game. And so they do a lot of testing and community dev streams, etc. And for us, we take that learning and do it with new IPs as well. So Exoborn, game developed by Shark Mob Studios, we've gone through a number of different tests with the community. So have done public tests, private tests. We even invite influencers into our studio, not just as a marketing exercise, but actually to give feedback on the game. What do you like? What do you not like? What do you need in a game when you're streaming to your audience? And for people from around the world, because maybe different people have different needs depending on kind of what part of what geography they are in. So yeah, we really, really value that aspect of collaborative development.
Brilliant. So what you just mentioned as well sort of like ties into the sort of like next point that I wanted to go through, and it's talking about a bit about community, and why does Tencent go for this community-driven approach?
Yeah, I think it comes a little bit from our DNA. We have been, Tencent in the past has focused a lot on free-to-play mobile games, evergreen titles, right? You look at, again, a League of Legends, a Fortnite, games that have been in the market for a long time. And in order for us to succeed, it's not just a developer-driven effort. It's also kind of what's the feedback from the community because, and sometimes it's a balance. We don't listen to everything the community says because it may have some negative impacts on the games themselves. But at the same time, it's no longer just kind of like the creatives, get to say everything because at the end of the day, this is a living, breathing thing. More than take like a movie, right, where you drop it and it's just engaged with it in a very passive way. This is a very active engagement model.
So, would you recommend most studios adopt this community-driven approach in today's market? I think one of the examples that I can think of at the moment is, I mean, the game hasn't been released yet, but like Fateless, there's a studio called Fateless Games, which started as influencers, and they decided to make their own game studio, and it's definitely community driven in how they they want to take their community on board with them with this game development journey. Would you recommend like most studios adopt this approach in today's market?
I think it depends a little bit on the type of game, but I think generally it's always good to get feedback. If you're building a single-player, campaign-driven type of game, you have a narrative storyteller that's probably best suited to tell us the journey and the story of the characters in the game. Versus if it's a evergreen multiplayer game where the community is supposed to partake in it for a long time. And you see a lot of that with modders becoming developers. It's kind of the same vein of like community becoming the development community. So you see that more and more, I think. Yeah, I think it's important, but again, it has to fit with the game, the philosophy of the studio, and how you actually go about developing the game.
Brilliant. I have a couple more questions, but I do want to give an opportunity for the audience to ask any questions. So if you have any questions, please do raise your hand and we will get a mic over to you. So I think we do have one question over here. Could we get a mic over here, please, Catherine?
First off, thank you so much for explaining kind of the history behind the community-driven approach. In light of that, I am really curious to know, do you have any expectations in terms of trends when it comes to user creation and when it comes to games involving their community even more, and how Tencent views that?
Yeah, I think user-generated content for us is a big one, and sometimes we talk about UGC and AI almost together because some of the content could be AI supported. It again depends on the game. I think we see it more and more, even in PUBG Mobile. We have a user-generated component. Obviously, Fortnite really rewards their community base with coming up with content that can be monetized. So I think it's going to flip the game development industry kind of on its end. I think, again, it depends on the type of game, and developers have to think more about not just like, DLC or MTX or things like that, but also like once the game comes out, what are the places where the community can actually engage with the game and like give more direct feedback in the form of user-generated content in the game. And I think it will take some creative thinking in some games, and other games maybe it follows kind of a more traditional model of like where it can be.
Anyone else have any questions? No? Okay, so I'll ask this next one. So, looking towards the future, where do you see the games industry in 5 years' time, and how, I guess, where does IP play a role in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I know. I think IP is going to play a very pivotal role in the sense of like, you look at all the ways you engage with digital entertainment today, right? Your phone with TikTok and Instagram, and your television and your console and your PC. I think in the future, more and more, it will be kind of an ever-present thing of like, your, whatever game you have will build a community base and will ideally engage that community wherever and whenever the player might be. You're, in the subway commuting to work in the morning, you can engage with that brand or IP in some way, shape, or form. Maybe your influencers or content creators are engaging with it in some way, shape, or form through some media platform. You get home, maybe you watch a TV show or movie, and then maybe you finally sit down and actually like pull out the controller and play for a little bit. So all of that. Maybe even another thing is like your kids want to engage with it, and they have to find some age-appropriate way to engage with that as well. So I think it's more about this concept of like transmedia is going to be more and more in games, and a lot of game IPs have done it successfully. You look at League of Legends with Arcane, very successful. And a number of other companies are now doing that as well. I think the most important thing is you have to really respect the IP and do it in a way that is genuine and makes sense for the IP. It's not a marketing exercise, it's not to make a quick buck. It's really like, what does your community want? And sometimes it can take some time, and it could take finding the right director or content creator or what have you. So.
Yeah. I mean, like gamers want to see their favorite games be if they were going to make TV shows or films. You want the stories to be adapted, with as much quality as possible. Using Arcane as an example, like it's a wonderful story that faithful adaptation of the sort of League of Legends universe. But then you have some films, TV shows that haven't adapted the source material very well, and I won't name and shame those because I think we all know who they are. But I guess all gamers want is faithful adaptations of their favorite gaming IPs. I guess we have like time for one more quick question if anyone has one in the audience. If not, I will ask this final one. We're wrapping up. You can go for it. You can do it.
What do you want to see in terms of changing in terms of game tooling in the next 5 to 10 years?
This kind of leads, I think, to the question you were going to ask, which was around tech. I think
you stole it. You stole the question.
Yeah. So tooling, I look at it as kind of how is tech going to be involved in game development? And I think to me, it's two things. One is the experience itself. How is it more immersive? We've talked about AR, VR for many years. It's come along. It hasn't really found the perfect footing, and it's still trying to kind of find its way through the ecosystem. So that's one. And then at the same time, TVs are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Processors are getting more and more powerful. But I'm sure there's other technologies. Like 10 years ago, if you told me I could take a phone and record this entire thing and live stream it to millions of people, like I'd be like, no, this is impossible, right? So that's the immersive side of entertainment. The other side is enabling efficiency. So that we talk about AI a lot. I think AI is a tool that can allow great content creators and developers make things faster, iterate, create higher quality content. And that's the biggest change is like the demands of the player base on our games is going to be higher and higher. And that bar is going to keep going up. And what does that mean is that the tools need to help us become more efficient, whatever that, the low level jobs that we used to do, I think more and more will be kind of helped by AI.
Brilliant. Can we give Yong-yi a round of applause, please?